Venezuela is very far away from Zimbabwe.
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Yes,
But I wonder.
I'm sure most of us have seen this video extended up on social media. And it has been taken to be a meme. And a lot of people have shared their opinions about this small clip ramabva kuona. And most of them vaitofunga kuti President ED vanga vasiri kuziva zvavanga vabvunzwa kana kuti vairasika pamubvunzo. And then I decided kuti no, let me just go and watch through the whole discussion yaitika. This was the World Government Summit ya 2026. So I just wanted to check kuti zvii zvaimbonyatsodiscusswa and why was he being asked this particular kind of questions. So I hopped on and kabva tikaona, and this was the first question that he was asked.
And first to you, President Mnangagwa, again, thanks. In as clear terms as you can, I wonder if you would contrast your experience with China versus the Western powers. Do you think that Zimbabwe and other African countries, to be totally blunt, get a better deal from Chinese investment than they have with Western powers over the past 150 years?
Now, before we hear the answer to this question, first of all, ndoda ndimbotanga ndataura about this man ari kuvunza questions. This guy anonzi Tucker Carlson. He is known to be an American right-wing activist, and anozikanwa with some of his most controversial statements and his controversial opinions about my current situations are kungoitika all over the world. So this guy who's asking President ED is an American right-wing activist, and this is very important to what we are about to witness, and it's also key to the questions that he's going to ask, because I'm going to be breaking it down. So even the first question if you notice, he's trying to make the president of Zimbabwe compare which Zimbabwe a better deal from China, my Chinese investments, or the Western countries. But now here is where it gets tricky. If you didn't know, Zimbabwe is planning on joining BRICS.
So, Zimbabwe is looking to join BRICS at the earliest opportunity, strengthening their position amid global instability. Benefits to trade that could counter US tariff action. But Trump will be watching, and his response could influence Zimbabwe in the short term, even if the BRICS move comes at the speed Harare wants.
BRICS, in simple terms, is a group of countries, anima fast-growing economies, which work together and help each other in terms of trades, in terms of currencies, in terms of even government backings and political backings. So BRICS, takaitarisa, is an abbreviation of 5 countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So payakatanga yanga ingorine 5 countries 5 iwawa, but it is since grown yatonem over 10 countries. Other countries have also joined BRICS. BRICS zvayakamirira manje ndezvekuti ivo they want to have world influence, and they do not want to rely on the Western countries, especially the USA. So BRICS is yakada ngofanana nenonzi NATO kana muchiziva nezveNATO, but it's on the other side. Ma opposites aya azvishandidzani BRICS neNATO. So Zimbabwe wants to join BRICS. Zimbabwe ikajoina BRICS, what it means to the USA ndezvekuti sanctions aya atinomboramba tichirohwa nawo aya anenge weak. Like the influence here the USA paZimbabwe inoita weak, but that is not really their main concern. One of their main concerns ndeyekuti kana Zimbabwe ikajoina BRICS and Zimbabwe's economy yobva yabudirira, yobva yaita stable, other African countries are also watching this as it happens. Countries aya akaona kuti Zimbabwe yajoina BRICS and their economy yato stable, other African countries are going to be tempted into joining BRICS. And if they start joining BRICS, it will affect the black market, because America nechekuserica iri kutotrada ichilutawo ma-resources mamwe muAfrica ichizviendesera, especially kuna naDRC ukoko. So if all these countries vakazoona kuti Zimbabwe payajoina BRICS yatoita stable, all these countries achadawo kujoina, ende kujoina uku kuchastopa some of the illegal deals ari kurohwa neamerica nechekuseri some of our African countries. So America has kuda izvozvo. And also once Zimbabwe joins BRICS, remember South Africa is also in BRICS, which means that the southern part of Africa yakutoda kutoita under the influence of BRICS, and USA doesn't like that. So this question is a tricky question because now remember this guy is an American and now he wants President Mnangagwa to compare kuti he wants him to compare kuti ndeipi iri kupa a better deal for Zimbabwe, ma-Chinese investors kana kuti the Western countries. But here's what the president of Zimbabwe had to say about it. Here's the answer that he gave.
Initially, as we became independent, we had most of our development thrust was from the West. But as we evolved, we have also benefited from investment and cooperation from countries like China.
But the basic structure seems the same. Foreign powers extract mineral wealth from various African countries. But do you think that the arrangement that Zimbabwe and other countries currently have with China is better or worse for Zimbabwe than it was under, say, the Brits?
I think the premises upon which you construct your question, I don't think is perfect.
Not surprised.
Yes, Zimbabwe is a sovereign state.
Yes.
You understand? And we move on the basis that gives us the best results of our resources. Whether it is relation with the West or the East, what is primarily important is what we ourselves as Zimbabweans are satisfied with. We don't need to please the West or please the East. We please ourselves.
Good.
This was a very smart answer. Remember, this guy is asking kuti President Idiva Sarudzi kuti either this or this, but the answer that he received, akaudzwa kuti after independence yeZimbabwe, Zimbabwe has benefited from the Western countries vakabatsira kubooster economy, kuwedzera economy yedu kuti ite zviri nani. But at the same time, as we grow as a nation, takabva tawanawo futi ichi tikabva tatanga ma-relations with the Chinese investors and we also benefited from them. Saka papa in simple terms, President Idi vangoavoida vakati no, isu hatisi kusarudza, isu tichangokudzai kuti vese vatibenefita, hatisi kuzoita zvamuroda kuti bvunze mimi, because once we start choosing then takutanga kuzviaffecta either way. Remember, hatisati muBRICS but toda kupinda muBRICS, saka tikasarudza kuti BRICS kuti China ndo yatibatsira zviri better, US can respond nema sanctions and isu hatisatapinda muBRICS, saka it's something that we don't know kuti chapinde around hatipinde. But wofuti isu tikasarudzwa kuti the Western ndo inenge yanga iri kutipa ma-better deals than China. China is one of the major superpowers are in BRICS because there's Russia and China. Major superpowers are all in BRICS. Saka tikada kutaura kuti tikusarudza the West, then it may harm our efforts of trying to get into BRICS. Saka this answer for me was a perfect answer. Just staying in the middle without choosing kuti E kana E.
President Mnangagwa, I wonder what lessons you've been in the government of Zimbabwe for decades in various roles, including through a very turbulent period where your predecessor famously kicked out the whites and then the economy tanked and now it's rising again. I wonder if you would summarize the lessons that your country has learned from that experience.
This is also taking us back to the Land Reform Act. Arikubvunza kuti hanzi iwewe, what are the lessons that you've learned? Because pamakadzinga ma-whites, your economy just went down. Economy yenyu yakabva yangoenda just because vadzinga ma-whites. But it's not kuti vadzinga ma-whites kuti ndo zvakadzikisa economy yeZimbabwe. We all know kuti pakatorwa land back from the whites. And it's the US yakaisa ma-sanctions kuZimbabwe, and those sanctions ndo akati affect our economy, akaita kuti economy idzika. Of course isusu we had a role yatakaplaya semazimbabweans atakaplayawo mukudonhedza economy yedu, but majorly chinhu chakanyanya kuti affect in terms of international trade and currency exchange where the sanctions akaimposwa on Zimbabwe from the US. Saka apa vakuda kutrya kuti ngoti papfungwa kuti just because takadzinga mawhites ndozvakabva zvakonzera kuti economy yeZimbabwe idzike, but this is not it. It's because masanctions avakatiisira kuZimbabwe ndo akabva atidonhedzerawo economy yedu. Pamwe yaigona but not at the rate yemidonhero yakaita after taisirwa masanctions. Saka this question is not really, you see what they are trying to do here. Vari kutira ngotirakidza kuti chipawa kuda kuti titange tazviblema isusu kuti economy yedu yakadonha just because takadzinga mawhites. Nyaya iri pakuti just because takadzinga mawhites ndosaka economy yedu yakadonha, kuti tifunge kuti saka without these whites dei takaramba tine mawhites economy yedu yairamba iripo. But this is just my opinion, but let's just continue to monzo what hands kudi.
I'm not so sure what you have in mind. But let me say our economy has faced challenges. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
Zimbabwe has been under sanctions for decades as a result of us claiming our land from the British and making ourselves independent. We seized the land and gave it to our people. So sanctions were imposed on us. But in spite of all that constraint we have developed, and we are happy that we have developed on our own, and we feel very independent.
Well, some of the land was seized from people who were born there. So I wonder if there's a lesson about targeting people on the basis of their skin color. Do you think?
Can I hear you?
Well, people had their land seized in Zimbabwe who were born in Zimbabwe, and they were targeted on the basis of their race, and I wonder if you think that's good or bad.
No. Land did not belong to a race. It
Right,
belonged to
that's right.
Zimbabweans.
Land did not belong to a race. It belonged to Zimbabweans.
So when the colonialists took land from us, time came when we asserted ourselves, take back our land. And those who wanted to have land at the same basis as the African people of Zimbabwe remained. But those who felt they were superior left.
Tikuona madhara akanyatsokugara vari kutarisa vari kusekerera vari kunakirwa kuti ndipresident wedu era. It's like they're in disbelief kuti this man is standing on business. Havasi kutomboda kunzwa nonsense dzese dzavari kubvunzwa idzi dzekuda kutraya kuti gaslighta isusu as if kunge takaita chinhu chiri wrong pakutora back our land yange yabiwa. But then after realizing kuti president president Mnangagwa havasi kutomboda zvese izvozvo, havasi kutomboda kana kushekwa, he is standing on business. Then came the third question, which was weird for me, and this is the question yatrenda, this is the question ine answer yaitwa meme nevanhu vakawanda, but let us hear it tinyatsoziva kuti chichiri kumbonyatsoitika.
Mnangagwa, what did you think of what happened in Venezuela last month?
Venezuela is very far away from Zimbabwe.
Yes, it is. Yes, sir. But I wonder, I still wonder as a head of state, a longtime head of state, what you thought of that. I mean, you must pay attention to what happens to other heads of state.
Yeah, but I don't know what we really read in Zimbabwe actually happens in Venezuela, but from what we read, we are interested to know why it is happening.
Now, this question to me was a very tricky question because ngatimbotarisei chinhu chiriitika. What happened in Venezuela last month ndechekuti the president of Venezuela was abducted in the middle of the night by the US military, and then he was transported to the US where he was detained and he was awaiting court for whatever reasons akapiwa. And so it means the American president President Donald Trump vakato-order the army, the military yavo yemu-US kuti endai munotora president weimwe nyika muuye naye panapa. Nyangwe zvikanzi mungada unzi tiri superpower kana kuti kudii. Kusosvika papoint yekuti munotozvipa imimi responsibility yekuti isu takuda kutonotora president weimwe nyika pauye panapa. So what he's asking ipapa, I think in my own opinion is he's trying to remind President ED kuti if you don't conform, ukaramba muchiita kastiri kakakiri kuda kuramba makaita stand on business akaka, whatever happened to Venezuela can also happen to you. It can also happen to other African presidents vari kuda kuramba vachinzi isusu we don't conform to what the US is doing. Mubabata. So the answer was very brilliant. Kuni vanga vakaona ka-clip aka vasina context vasiri kuziva zviri kunyatsokuitika. President ED vakangoti Venezuela kutaura chekwadi ka itongoriwo kure neZimbabwe. And iri kure neZimbabwe, whatever we see or whatever we read, tinso toda kutoziva kuti sei zvakaitika. This answer haina kuataka munhu, and at the same time haina kuti ndingari right kana kuti ndingari wrong. Vakangotaura kuti isusu Venezuela itoriwo kure neZimbabwe, nditoda kutoziva kuti zvakatomboitikirei iwo. Akabva atoplayawo like munhu asiri kutozivawo kuti why what happened. But obviously as a president anenge achitoziva kuti something happened and anenge atoriwo nemaopinions awo. But at this point he displayed intelligence dzekutorakidza kuti aiwa apa pasituation iyi haisvoda kuti ndimbopa pfungwa dzangu ndeyekungoti nini, let me just lay low nongoramba ndiri neutral nenondotoita kutoti ndinoda kutozivawo kuti chii chakaitika. Because remember dei akataura kuti zvakaitwa naPresident Trump hazviite, we condemn that, what. Remember from the start of this conversation, from the first question, papagara parida kunzi vaite a choice. Vasarudze either China kana kuti the US or the Western countries kana kuti ma-Chinese investment. Papangori nekuda kurakidza kuti vasarudze. And then the second question yange iri kuda kutira kuvareminder futi kuti after madzinga varungu vedu takakupai ma-sanctions economy yenyu ikadzika, kuda kurakidza power imwe yaya. Apa pavakumubvunza futi kuda kumureminder kuti do you know kuti isusu president vedu vakatoenda kune imwe nyika vakamutora president wekune imwe nyika. All these questions, tricky questions twanga turipo. And the most interesting part ndechekuti after vabvunza some of these questions to President ED, kune mamwe mapresident vabva vatotanga kutobvunza kuti saka mayouth hanzi there was a question yabvunzwa another president zvikanzi how are you managing to control birth rate. What vamwe vakatanga kubvunzwa zvemayouth. Uchishaura kuti saka isusu why are we being asked these politically linked questions, vamwe muri wabvunza zvekutoti birth rate nechichichichi. So in my opinion, I think the president of Zimbabwe, President ED, vaka display a level of intelligence yekuti this guy angasiri ku-expect. This guy wanted to trap ED so that after this there is a clear distinction, there is a clear choice inenge yaitwa kuti isusu either we are choosing kunana China kana kuti we are choosing the Western countries. So let me know your thoughts, guys, on this. I thank you for watching. Until next time, it's goodbye.